Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of From the Logo Podcast. I know it's been a little minute, but we back. We got ZZ, myself, Hayes in the building, and ZZ. It's been some stuff to happen. Of course, the NBA Finals went down. We already got the start of the offseason. Some fairly big trades went down already as teams gear up for the NBA draft tomorrow. But before we get into the business, how you been, brother?
I've been good, man. Watching the NBA Finals was great. It definitely is probably top 2 for best finals I've seen this decade. Warriors #1, 2022. But even still, you know what I learned in this finals phase? You will not hear a bad word out of my mouth about Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact.
On this show on PC, I'm not getting into no superstar debates. I ain't doing none of that shit. You will not hear a word except nothing but appreciation and
exploring here. But I love
that's it. That's it.
Yeah, that's a fact. I love the fact too that this all happened. Like Tyrese Halliburton had such a great playoff run, hitting the game winner in every series. The choke moment in New York was an amazing thing, and him even wanting to battle back like that. Like they said, the calf injury would have been a multi-week injury any other time, but he basically said if I could walk, I could play. It's unfortunate what ended up happening, right? Because the calf injury can be a precursor to something going on with the Achilles, and it was just like the KD situation, basically dealing with a calf injury, and then it eventually turns into a ruptured Achilles. And now we're not going to have Tyrese Halliburton for basically the entirety of next year.
Yes. And Ron has a point. Ron has a point. OKC, you can make an argument that they got lucky, and that sucks for OKC.
Did you get muted there?
Did get muted. Am I good now?
Right there. Yeah, you good.
Even though going into the series I had them in 5, but they were a 68-win team, so it is what it is. But shout out to Halliburton, Nembhard, Pascal, Miles Turner. They forever got my respect. Maybe not so Miles Turner, but the other guys for sure. Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin. Just what a run for these guys. It sucks that next year they're literally going to have to. I don't know, tank. I don't know what they're going to have to do next year. I know that they got something. I was looking into the contracts, and they have something that they can do with, I think, Nembhard, that basically if they were to tank, it wouldn't be the worst idea. I was reading something about that. Yeah. Don't think it'd be the best decision, but what you think?
I don't know what they're going to do because, in one sense, I get it. I think they also, because they have to make a decision on Miles Turner's contract, which could send them into the luxury tax. They're not typically a team that pays the luxury tax. And you would like to think if you're going to pay the luxury tax, you don't want to just take it as a flyer year. You're one of the deepest teams in the league, right? And the Eastern Conference is already going to be a little bit weaker as is. I could still see the Pacers going into the second round of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, right? I think if they can sign a vet minimum contract or maybe a little bit more, they have their mid-level exception to get a point guard. You look at a Trey Jones, a Tyus Jones. Those are guys that are out there that could help, be a gap stop for you while, Tyrese is out. I can still see them being competitive enough in the East, but, we'll see. They did just make that trade to get, their pick back, I think in 26. So I think that may be what you're talking about in the case. It could be beneficial to them to tank, but they're going to have to make the same tough decision that Boston's going to have to make. How much do you want to compete next season where it's a deep draft and you could set yourself up pretty nicely if you do tank? So we'll see what happens there.
I'm glad that you mentioned that too with the Eastern Conference, because realistically speaking, at this point, I'm picking the Knicks just today, right?
Mm-hmm.
That changes
over the Cavs.
A couple months. No, you're right. The Cavs.
Okay.
I could rock with the Knicks still. Anyway, the Knicks or the Cavs, either way. But one oddball in this all, Hayes, is one common denominator in all this. Joel Embiid ain't got no excuse next year, bro. I'm sorry. If the conference finals isn't the Knicks and Cavs, or isn't some variation of the 76ers involved in that against one of those two teams, that's a problem. Or if it's the Pacers, even if they magically do that again, which they could, because those niggas took the power of friendship and put acid on it. It's insane. But that's something that I think is going to be a very like critical narrative going into next season for Philadelphia. Even still, like despite Joel Embiid, Paul George was the hottest free agent, and y'all were the ones that signed him. Y'all were the ones that made the deal for him. So that experiment we saw in like less than 20 games this year, if I'm not mistaken. Also, Jared McCain, his injury was very significant as well. So hopefully they can get back healthy. But if the Cavaliers are looking at this like, and that's another question I got to ask about the Cavaliers. What do they do after another failed attempt this year? The question marks were swirling right after they lost in the second round to Darius Garland and pointed at Jared Allen. So me personally, I still have a little bit of hope for Darius Garland. I still have a decent amount of hope for Jared Allen, but they make the trade for DeAndre Hunter. They have a decent finish to the season. And then you see Ty Jerome, I think his name was in the mix as well. He might end up opting out or leaving or whatever the case may be. But Cleveland's got some stuff to handle as well. And
yeah, I mean, for Cleveland, I look at Cleveland personally. I know this is not what everybody feels on Cleveland, and I understand it. But the way I look at Cleveland is that I don't think they should be looking to make major moves. Like, you weren't healthy in the playoffs.
I agree.
And you have another year. Your whole core is under contract. I would say give it one more year, and especially with the East being weaker, and just run it back. And then therefore, if you don't, there's a lot of teams with cap space in 2026 summer. That's where you start making your move, in my opinion. Like, you take advantage then. If you have another season or postseason of disappointment in the summer of 2026, then that's where you want to move. Like, hearing that they offered Darius Garland for Kevin Durant was crazy to me, because I did not expect that at all to happen.
Yeah. They for me, when I look at that situation, I agree with you on the part of they don't need to. They got to pump the brakes on any panic button, like anything, because at the end of the day, the East is as wide open as it's been in 5 years. Genuinely, like even that one off, I think season that the Celtics missed the playoffs or got bounced in the first round. Like, they were the quintessential or the consensus top dogs in the Eastern Conference, and then everybody else started making moves along the way. Dell, the last time I was on the panel, Dell was making a great argument about Tom Thibodeau and thinking that he got fired a little prematurely. And I agree with them based on the fact that, as much as I have my love-hate relationship with his coaching style, Tibbs helped revitalize the city. It's deeper than that. Like, at this point, when you're talking about a head coach and to coach the New York Knicks, a bunch of talent on that roster. Don't get me wrong, getting the most out of Jalen Brunson, trying to work with Karl Anthony Towns, who is a drop coverage demon. Like, there's a lot of just areas that you could point to and nuances about that you could say, okay, well, you know what? Maybe they could have gave it another crack. And if they had, with the circumstances surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers, then next season, like I said, the Knicks would be looked at as, why can't you be in the conference finals? Why can't you be the Indiana Pacers of this year? That's all I'm saying. So, Gifted, welcome to the show, brother. Long time no see. Missed you, man. How you doing, man?
Want to say apologies. I got the time wrong, but moving forward, I'm locked in. I'm happy to be here. It's been a while. A lot of things have happened basketball wise. I heard you guys talking ball about the Cavaliers and what they maybe should or shouldn't do. There's been a lot of things to change. Literally today, we have a breaking trade about the Pelicans too. I'm assuming even more trades are going to be like actively happening before this draft. This is the draft everyone thought would be like it was last year, where teams are actively making shifts and pitches and moves right beforehand. So I'm excited, man. I am.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. How do you feel about the Cavs? So coming into that conversation, do you think the Cavs should keep everything the same, or do you think they should be looking to make a move? Well, there's a lot of movement expected this offseason.
Okay. So this is a hard, I would say, convo for me, because the Cavs were outplayed by the Pacers. They weren't healthy in the series. I definitely understand that, but I still feel like how the Pacers play basketball, I feel like they were a better team than the Cavs. And we saw some similar things pop up to give them problems. Having that lack of a real scoring punch that can go at a pretty good defense off the bench hurt them. To me, I also think Jerry Allen's physicality as a center really, really, really goes to shit in these playoffs. And I'll try to give him some grace, but time and time again, he just loses effectiveness, especially offensively in these playoffs. And they just felt like they didn't really have that true spark. I think they do need to make a trade to improve their roster. But my thing is, if they want to go to the finals, you can argue they don't have to do anything because of all the teams that are injured already. The top 4 teams basically got injuries to everyone there. So like this upcoming Eastern Conference is going to be a lot more open. But it wouldn't surprise me even if the Cavs are favored if they don't win. So to me, like there has to be some type of shift to get more of a scoring threat off of their bench to help change these things. But I still think the Cavs are going to be a regular season power horse in the Eastern Conference next year.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, ZZ.
Do you think that means moving someone like a Ty Jerome?
Yeah, I actually would say that. I like Ty Jerome. I think he played very, very well versus Miami, but I think when it came down to the Pacers, he really underperformed. And I think that for his contract, you can maybe find a younger talent. Like I personally think Colin Sexton might fit better than Ty Jerome just as a go-to combo guard scorer. Like they need a spark plug who can get to shots fast. The thing that I noticed about Ty Jerome is his 3-point shooting. Like he doesn't have a very quick pull-up shot. And that showed itself versus the Pacers. So getting some type of guy that can do more of that in a consistent role off of their bench could really do great dividends for them, honestly.
I agree.
Yeah, good.
That was a good pull.
That's a fact. Well, let's talk about some of the moves that have happened. I think we'd be remiss if we did not start off first with Kevin Durant officially on his way to the Houston Rockets in exchange for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, and the number 10, as well as 5 second-round picks that they included in that?
Yes.
Which, I think the 5 second-round picks, I get it. Like, I think people kind of took that a little bit. Like, don't get me wrong. You can use second-round picks to as filler and other moves and stuff like that, but it's not anything crazy. Let's judge the deal first. How do you feel about the deal for both Phoenix and Houston? Whoever wants to take it first.
Oh, man. Okay. This is the team I wanted Kevin Durant to go to. And I was saying that because what he often does is he chooses a team that has a star player, one other star player with a very mediocre roster, and they just think they're going to be this unbeatable team, and they haven't been for 2 years now, right? We saw how things ended up in, I would say, Brooklyn. Although, to be fair to them, a lot of the injuries really derailed their season. But then in Phoenix, trying to make things work with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker with a very mediocre roster that had a pretty poor defense didn't bode well. This Houston team, especially as a Warriors fan, because I saw 7 games of them, defensively, they had an argument to probably be right up there with Oklahoma City. Like their defense was that legitimate in the series. What lost in the series is they just didn't have enough execution in the half court. But their counter to that is, hey, we suck, but we're going to get the rebound. We're going to put you in foul trouble, and we're going to have more possessions than you, and that's going to be how we force a 7-game series. When you add Kevin Durant to that equation, you have a guy that at the bare minimum is a flat-out more gifted scorer to give the ball in the majority of those sets, and you should be able to get cleaner and easier looks. And athletically, like you also get more size from doing this trade. Now, I do think losing Dillon Brooks is tough. A lot of people shit on him. I understand. But he did add a lot of things for them. But I think this is where you need a guy like Tari Easton to really step up. Amin Thompson has to take another step forward as well. And Ken Whitmore, we got to see if he's a real player. So I like it for them. I really, really do. They didn't have to really give up much at all. I don't think Jalen Green is a consistently good basketball player. So I like it for them a lot. I think that's a good team for him to go to.
Well, it wasn't even like 3 months ago on the show. We were rambling, and I said Kevin Durant would be great in Houston because they need a guy to get the ball to. Watching their offense almost made me want to throw up throughout the regular season because and I can only imagine how bad it is as a Rockets fan because you're sitting there saying, well, let's hope Jalen Green's Michael Jordan tonight. And then any other night you're saying, well, let's hope that we can, I guess,
destroy them on the glass, like something. But you don't want to have to deal with that battle. And like Gift just perfectly alluded to in the Warriors series, that's literally what it was. They weren't outscoring us on any given night, but if they could out defend and out rebound us, then oh yeah, we were in for a long night. Now, the difference between the Rockets and the Warriors in that 7-game series was one team had Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, and the other team had Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks. And I'm talking about just high volume guys that you just know without a shadow of a doubt are going to end up with the most shot attempts on the court in their starting lineup. You replace those two that I just named now with Kevin Durant. And if I was Houston, I'd say, look, you can take every single one of their shot attempts combined, because goddamn it, we'll appreciate you doing it compared to them. Because if Jalen Green isn't knocking down threes, or if he's trying to attack downhill and just charging at brick walls and getting the shit sitting back, or he's hitting the floor, that's not helping us. Or Dylan Brooks with that weird ass jumper that could or could not go in on any random night. Like, nobody wants to sit through and play chance basketball when we're trying to have a competent offense. That's not good. So with this trade, you factor those two in. The number 10 pick in the 2020 in the draft, in this year's draft, and then 5 second-round picks,
which is basically Jay Crowder.
That's funny.
Y'all remember that?
It was, and Jay Crowder held out like a motherfucker trying to just get out of Phoenix, but
didn't even play in the playoffs. We got traded for that too.
Now let's throw this question out there. We talked about the Houston side of it, and we'll get into it a little bit more. Chad, feel free to chime in as well on what Houston's whole makeup is, because you take Fred VanVleet, you take Amen Thompson, you take Steven Adams and Alperen Şengün and Torrey Eason and Cam Whitmore and Reed Shepherd, who might have a bigger role this year, right?
And you keep Jabari Smith too.
Yeah. And you keep Jabari Smith.
That was the huge part of that. Keeping Jabari Smith is crazy.
Yes. Jabari Smith was a huge X factor for them in that 7-game series, because he was the one guy that he played well. You could tell just didn't really game plan for. If they were going to leave him open in a corner, he can knock down two back-to-back corner threes. And then if they're going to come off the line, he can attack and drive downhill. And he could get off a decent mid-range. So he's basically like 2 steps better than Jonathan Kuminga on any given night. Anyway, point is they got to keep that prospect, which is fantastic. And I think all three of us are in agreement. Ime Udoka ain't half bad as a coach to coach that, to get something done, right? Now, this will be a challenge for Ime Udoka to still bring that a top 6 defense level team with the pieces that they have, which makes me question if they're really done retooling everything over here. We'll see. But the Sun side of this is interesting to me, because I had a conversation with one of my homies after this Kevin Durant trade hit the news, and he's like, yo, well, free Devin Booker. And I'm like, you damn right, free Devin Booker. If ain't nobody else gonna say it, I'm gonna say it. Keep Bradley Beal in Phoenix. If he don't want to waive his no trade clause, you can leave that nigga there, and he can bottom feed in a different conference this time. But Devin Booker is a man that not only has been to the mountaintop, not completely stamped his flag there, but he went to the NBA Finals and went through 6 games, and it took a Giannis 50 burger to really shut the door on him like that. Wasn't his fault that DeAndre Ayton was getting demolished every single play, and Monty Williams was like, I believe in him. That belief didn't shit. That didn't mean anything. I say that to say Devin Booker is a player that once dropped 70 points in a loss. That is some my career shit, genuinely speaking. So he's always, since that day, I've been like, you know what, get that man some help. And he's had every single ounce of help you could possibly ask for from a well-constructed team led by the point god in Chris Paul, with Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder and Cam Johnson to match, all the way up to Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. And what's left of this roster, Tyus Jones, we talked about how great of a pickup that was in the offseason. That didn't amount to shit in this season at all for the Phoenix Suns. If I'm Devin Booker, I'm saying, all right, bro, we ain't going nowhere. I'm looking at bad back Bradley Beal as my savior now. That's what I'm looking at. I done played with arguably better. You could go back to the days in which just randomly drop some old Suns players from 10 years ago that Devin Booker played with. And
Dragon Bender.
Dragon Bender. Oh my God.
That's hilarious.
Tragic. God damn, one of the dudes' names.
I think Tyler Ulis.
What was the game that Isaiah Thomas they played Isaiah Thomas, and that was that clutch back and forth down the stretch of that, and they lost that shit. But whoever was not Torrey Craig, damn it, Eric Bledsoe. That's who it
wow, that was a pull.
Yeah,
that was a pull.
Eric Bledsoe. That's who I was thinking of. And he once tweeted out on Twitter, "I hate it here," before he was traded. When he
got packed up a couple of days after. Yep.
Yeah. So look, I'm just saying at this point, bro, Phoenix is blowing it up. Clearly, they're not in a contending state. They're barely in a play-in state. So Devin Booker should not have to suffer anymore. That nigga once dated a Jenner. He's suffered enough. Let that man find basketball prosperity somewhere else, please.
See, but the thing is that, and I agree with you, coming into this offseason, I'm like, just clear the deck, trade everyone, recoup all the picks that you can and clear the deck that way. But then they had Devin Booker involved in the coaching search. They picked his favorite guy in the coaching search. They said that they want to still find a way to compete with Devin Booker. All those things are fine if you're going to actually wake the fuck up and stop making the same mistakes. But then you trade for Jalen Green, and rather than look for a third team, you say, no, we're committed to a backcourt of Jalen Green and Devin Booker. Did you not just fucking learn from the last 2 years?
Facts, bro.
We just saw this shit. And so it's like, what I get it that the Ishaba family, they are all fine with throwing money at it, and they are willing to pay whatever it takes to have a contender. But this is where it goes to when people complain. We just saw two teams that don't pay the luxury tax in the finals. Paying the luxury tax doesn't make your team good if you have idiots running your franchise. To be stupid, to think that Jalen Green and Devin Booker as a backcourt after what you haven't even completed it yet. Bradley Beal is still in your damn roster.
Yeah, he's still there. It don't matter how many tweets you have about it.
Just lurking.
Yeah. It don't matter Hayes, I'm sorry. It doesn't matter how many tweets I'm going to see about, the Phoenix Suns are interested in trading Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal has no trade clause. It's going to always come back to that, right? I love the points being made so far. To me, I'm not on the free Devin Booker shit. I think that's lazy. And the reason why I think that's lazy is he's going to make $75 million. I'm never saying free nothing to a guy that's going to make $75 million. They're going to pay him that. He's going to take it. He's going to suck it up on this roster. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I will honestly say this, not for nothing. I hate this trade. I want to be clear. The Suns are ass. Let's be clear about that. The Suns are a terrible organization and franchise. I said it when they got Bradley Beal in the first place. I literally saw the KD trade coming a mile away. I said, they got Bradley Beal. They're going to be, if they don't win, to get better, they're going to have to trade either Devin Booker or Kevin Durant. It's going to be Kevin Durant because he's older and Devin Booker is a franchise player. What they're trying to do now, essentially, is rebuild and retool around Devin Booker and hope they can get some guy in 2026. That's the goal. Get as much cap space off of their books as Bradley Beal expires over time. But the Jalen Green shit is weird. And Hayes, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a report that if they make a trade with the Rockets and they got Jalen Green back, initially they wanted to try to reroute him to other teams. So they were already looking into doing that.
They were reported the whole week before. They were looking at teams for third teams that would take on Jalen Green. How do you go from that to we're committed to a backcourt of Jalen Green and Devin Booker?
The same way, Hayes and Gifted, that you go from from bro saying we love Kevin Durant and we want him to retire here and ride off into the sunset. And then Kevin Durant is now in trade talks with Golden State that he didn't even want to go back to. At that moment, I was like, he's done. He's cooked. Because not only have you violated the trust of Kevin Durant, which, as we know from past failed relationships like that, like James Harden and Daryl Morey, once the media labels you as, that's his favorite, shit is always going to hit the fan every time. James Harden went from being Daryl Morey's favorite to airing this nigga out on another continent, mainly of people that hated his guts. So
Daryl Morey is a liar.
Insane work. So I say all that to say, the reason that I'm in the free Devin Booker movement is because, look, the Luka Doncic trade set off some shit, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that shit set a precedent, which is you ain't too big, you ain't too extravagant or too great of a basketball player to get moved. if shit ain't working the way that we want to. And the one thing that you got to think of, hey, like Hayes just said, if you have an owner that's willing to throw money at the wall because it's just money, eventually, when you keep barely entering the playoffs and then getting either bounced out in the first round or bounced out in the play-in game, or you literally can't make either of them, eventually the guy's going to sit there and say, how much more money do we have to throw? Joe Lacob is somebody that I think of immediately off when I think about this, because that's a guy that took a window for the Warriors where Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant get hurt in a finals. The next year, then Steph gets hurt at the start of the season. You tank. You end up missing on your draft pick in retrospect in James Wiseman. And then you're able to double back and say, look, go get me an Andrew Wiggins. We just need a small forward at this point. We done won championships on small ball lineups. Fuck it. James Wiseman, put him to the bench, and we'll move him to Detroit next week. But for right now, go get me what we need to win a championship, because we still got Steph Curry and we still got Draymond Green. The Suns don't have that if they say, hey, we still got Devin Booker. Yeah, it's cute that you still want him to be the franchise player after 10 years of almost making it there, right? And like pre-bubble Suns, the pre-bubble Devin Booker Suns was hell. The moment they went on that 8-game win streak in the bubble, everything just turned for this team in that next 3 years. But in that time span, like I said, Hayes, we went from a team that was perfectly built around your franchise player to then a fucking shit show.
Big trade just happened?
Yes.
What happened?
I wanted to wait until Zizi was done.
Go ahead.
So there's been a 3-team trade. Boston, Atlanta, and Brooklyn are finalizing a 3-team trade that sends Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick to the Atlanta Hawks, Terrence Mann and Atlanta's number 22 pick this year to the Brooklyn Nets, and Georges Niang and a second rounder to the Celtics. Now, my gut reaction, Hayes, is this. Shout out to the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
When they make moves, they don't fuck around. They make them quick.
Oh, God.
They get quick salary so quick.
When Boston sets their mind on all these niggas about to go, guess what? All them niggas is about to go. Like it's no question about it.
Within 24 hours.
And listen, you gotta commend it because again, vision and drive to get it done, to clear it out. And I love that they're getting this done early in the offseason. So now they can go through with the rest of their offseason and just figure out where the team's gonna be.
I think Jaylen Brown might be next.
Nah, I don't think they're gonna move Jaylen Brown. Even though I've read some things saying that they are getting some crazy offers that they didn't expect. So
I believe it.
I don't think they're gonna move Jaylen. I don't think they're gonna move Jaylen without giving him and Tatum a chance with the reformed roster. I don't believe so. But I could be completely naive on that, but I just don't believe.
No, Hayes, I get that point. I get that point. But it's not far off, Gifted. I feel where you're coming from with that take, because I've said this all season long. This whole season, the Celtics championship window is literally at an expiration date this June. If they don't make it, if they don't win it, if they don't go back to back, because we've talked about it on this show a billion times, that CBA ain't no joke no more. You got a window. You literally have a window.
$500 million tax for them, basically.
Yep. On God. And look, they said, look, Tatum's injury was terrible timing. But when it happened, I said, this is the end of this iteration. Drew Holiday had 2 back-to-back postseasons where he was shaky in terms of just being in the lineup, and then eventually was able to pull through in the finals. Same thing with Kristaps Porzingis. But those were the 2 biggest additions that they brought onto the crew to complement them. And they were great when they were there, but they weren't there all the time. And with Jason Tatum being home for an entire season next year, ain't no time to be wasting time. Like go ahead and move shit. Let's go ahead and try to get ourselves in the best position that we can for when Jason Tatum comes back the next year. But Brad Stevens, that boy on the move. That boy don't care about nothing. It's time. Appreciate it for your time.
And that's the benefit too. People don't realize that is the benefit of when you have somebody that moves from being in your coaching staff to being in your front office. He understands how and where these players fit, because he's coached some of these players. He's brought some of these players in. But the thing that I love about him as well, no attachment. If it's time for you to go, it's time for you to go.
And I'm so happy this happened, because this brings me to the other point about the Suns that I really want to eviscerate, right? When it's time for Boston to get better, Hayes, they get better.
Yeah.
They don't care about no narrative. Like a lot of people said, oh my God, Boston, they're going to never get a free agent after the way they traded Isaiah Thomas, which was wrong, right? They did him bold, but
has
they
anybody
don't
talked
care
about that since?
No.
Business is business.
No, because they still find ways to trade for these guys. They don't got to get nobody free agency. Boston is making trades to get her done. And the funny part is most of the trades happen in this month, year by year by year by year. Like this is normally their time window. But I say all this to say they're not asking players, oh, how do you feel? No, they're going for the package that best suits them. Yep. This Phoenix Suns joke of a front office had the nerve to say, well, let's appeal to Kevin Durant. First off, what did Kevin Durant give you?
Like Mad Dog said,
how much success did you have with Kevin Durant? Right? Like they're spending it. And then on top of that, they had better offers at the deadline. They had better offers there, but the teams he didn't want to go to, so they said no. And the funny part is apparently KD and the Rockets tampered and were going back and forth to make sure he could lower the value more and more and more, which is why KD got traded and his team barely changed.
But you know the thing with that is too, and I said this coming in over on Locked On NBA, the moment that the Heat got involved, and even it was mentioned that it was one of Kevin Durant's favorite. If I'm San Antonio, if I'm Houston, and I'm looking at the assets that the Miami Heat have to offer, you aren't getting multiple first-round picks from me. Because the Miami Heat, all they got to offer you is 3 picks that are all 3-4 years out, no really good young players, because unless they were willing to pick Khalil Ware. So you're right, you're not going to get a crazy offer. Then on top of that, you got Kevin Durant working behind the scenes to screw you over because you try to trade him behind his back. This is why you got to treat players the right way. Or if you're going to move them, be decisive in moving them and move the fuck on.
Make a decision, bro.
You tried to move Kevin Durant at the trade deadline without him knowing, and now look at you. He fucked you because you the way you went about your business.
And look, to be honest with you,
it's facts.
I saw the First Take segment where Mad Dog was like, why should they appeal to him? Why should they appeal to him? And to everything that Hayes and Gifted just pointed out is exactly how I feel. And what I said earlier in the show, they had an opportunity where shit was just good. Everything was nice. And then out of nowhere, Kevin Durant wakes up to find that his name is being associated with potentially going back and reuniting with the light-skinned Messiah. And he ain't asked for that. He ain't asked for that. So, and I want to bring this point back to the Brooklyn days, right? We asked that same question that you just asked about Phoenix, Gifted. What did he do for this organization? When it came time for him to move out of Brooklyn and they fucked over Kyrie Irving and sent him to Dallas where he didn't want to go, and then in Kyrie's way of laughing back at them, he was able to literally end up running into the NBA Finals with Luka.
And get a max too.
And get the max. So like, and the narrative and everything surrounding Kyrie was completely different, right? And he had changed his how his perception was in the public, which was all great things. Kevin Durant, when he wanted to leave Brooklyn, he said, I want to go to Phoenix. That's one of my top destinations. I think Miami was in there too. He got his wishes, no issues, no problems, because at the end of the day, the one thing Brooklyn couldn't say is that Kevin Durant didn't give his all for that franchise. That's the thing they couldn't say. Like, he was the last soldier standing in a playoff run that they genuinely could have made it all the way and run the whole damn thing if everything had went perfectly in according to plan. So I say all that to say, his Phoenix years, you don't get that same luxury. In Golden State, when he left Golden State, that was somewhat peaceful, even though it was controversial at the time, or however you want to call it, based on the Draymond stuff and then the Achilles and all that. But he still was able to leave gracefully. Oklahoma City kind of fucked him over there, joining the team that you were up 3-1 against, and but it is what it is. Like
free agency at least.
Yeah, it was free agency. He could say that. He could say I put in 9 years here. He could say that, right? In Phoenix, dog, I'm like, look, I remember the live episode of, I think it might have been either First Take or Undisputed, but they were in Phoenix, and the narrative is immediately after Kevin Durant got traded to Phoenix was, I remember, I think Skip turned around and said to the crowd in Phoenix, you guys just won the NBA championship. No, No, man, you don't get to go.
Hilarious, Cap.
If that was our expectation, if that was our ceiling off rip from just your name appearing, no, we didn't even make it to the second round. Well, we did, but it was because Kawhi got hurt. Either way, like the goal there was not accomplished. It's the wild, wild west on top of that too. We can appreciate the Eastern Conference and definitively say clearer that we or more definitively that we think he would have been able to make it further in that Brooklyn year. But in Phoenix, when you get the wild, wild west of the Thunder, the Warriors, the Rockets, even before that,
it was up in Phoenix. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Clippers, of course, with a healthy Kawhi, of course. Like, come on now. And now he's in Houston, which is great. You know, now let me ask this question. Chat, hop in this as well. What did this do for Houston's championship expectations or championship chances, if you will, on a scale of 1 to 10? Did this move it at all? And where was it at originally? Because it was, in my opinion, it was like a 4, and now it's like 4.5
for Houston.
Yeah,
I think for Houston they boosted up pretty good.
Yeah,
I'll probably go from 4 to like maybe like a 7 for me.
Yeah, I mean,
this is based on the current roster, for my opinion. Yeah. Like, I feel like they're still going to tool it, and then it can go up. But you know,
I mean, I don't know how much more they're going to tweak it, to be honest with you. But I think if you look at what Houston was missing, they were missing somebody who could score outside the framework of the offense, and that's exactly what Kevin Durant has. And people who talk about Kevin Durant, I know he's 36, about to be 37 years old, but people talking about him like he's washed are tripping, because like he was the 6th leading scorer in the league on over 40% from 3 and over 50% from the field. He's still efficient, right? So one of the most efficient players in the league. I think what he now frees up Amen Thompson to be defensively, and also like now Amen Thompson's offense come a little bit more naturally, and the gravity and pressure that Kevin Durant's going to put on teams.
Exactly.
I think it's just I think that this team, I'm not willing to call them a favorite in the West or anything like that, but I'll say this: it wouldn't shock me if they make a Western Conference Finals at all. It would not shock me.
Yeah, I'm generally would not be surprised at all, because my biggest thing is to get Kevin Durant, they didn't have to sacrifice their identity. Their identity is still very much so a defensive, right? Like they're still a defensive, oriented roster that rebounds the ball. They lost players that didn't like greatly contribute so overwhelmingly so to where if you trade them is a whole new team. You're replacing Jalen Green shot attempts with Kevin Durant shots, right? Tari Eason, Cam, like they have guys to fit in those spots, and they're still going to be a taller team than a lot of these other teams as well. So to me, they only double down on what their real strength is by getting a capable guy that can just make shots and make baskets, right? So I really like it for them, honestly. Now I do think staying healthy is a thing for them. I do think trying to find better point guard production, especially off their bench, is a thing they're gonna maybe want to have more of. But I like it for them a lot, man. I think they are a serious team in the Western Conference, and I don't say that lightly, because I told people as soon as I saw Bradley Beal go there, this team sucks. I don't believe in them, but I believe in the Rockets. I really do.
I like that. I like that take. I'm gonna bump mine up from a 4.5 to a 5.5, and the only reason that it's not at a 7 is because we just beat these niggas in the first round. So why? What am I gonna hype these niggas up? Yeah, you got Kevin Durant, but we gonna stomp that nigga. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I say they're definitely still a top 4 team, like they were this year for the majority.
I believe so.
Year.
Yeah.
So that's something. They don't dip in that regard. Like Gifted said, health is the biggest thing. I think that's going to be the biggest beneficiating factor for them, especially with Kevin Durant being that age, because the one thing that you can't say is that he slipped, especially when it comes to the shooting splits over the years. You could say he slipped in games, you could say things like that, but the majority of his injuries in the last few years have been like slip and slide injuries, like the one that he had in warm-ups that one time, just out of nowhere, just like random tall skinny nigga problems. Like, it's fine. So I hope that they're able to stay healthy. I will say, I do think that they, like Gita said, they do need more point guard production off the bench just to be able. They just need a setter, like the same way that Fred VanVleet was kind of setting things up or just setting tempo for them in that series. They need a setter, and then I feel like they'll be okay off the bench. Because Fred VanVleet, I wonder what his production is going to look like, if it's going to change in any way. if he's going to become a playmaker in the starting lineup, things like that. Because literally in Game 6, he was just the saving grace. He was, because he showed up for work that day and knocked down multiple threes. That was a big differentiating factor. And then in Game 7, he was the one that was kickstarting the offense when they got off to a slow start, telling guys to wake up. So we'll see.
But now you have much better variance because you have Kevin Durant being your leading shot taker probably. Operation Goon can still get his in a better space with KD being there. Like, his scoring gravity alone is big, but the biggest thing for me, Hayes, is putting active athletic cutters next to Kevin Durant to where if you want to basically double him or whatever, Amin Thompson can quick cut, dunk at the basket, right? Like, that's what I like, using that and how creative they can be with that. That's what I like the most about this team.
I feel you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree mainly with Gifted there. I think, there's a lot to like about the team. It's just, you got to see it, right? You don't want to guess too much based off what it on paper. Like, you got to see it, and so much sometimes these acquisitions, they make a lot of sense on paper, but then when they get into reality, you're like, okay, that didn't quite work the way that I thought it would. But then sometimes you get like with Bradley Beal going to Phoenix, where you just knew that was going to be a shit show from the beginning of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me switch gears while we get ready to wrap up here soon. With this trade of Kristaps Porzingis going to Atlanta, and in a weaker Eastern Conference, where do you think that puts Atlanta in the East as it stands right now?
I really don't want to say this, but I have to be honest. I like Porzingis. I think Porzingis is a good player. He don't stay healthy. So it's like, for me, it's like, how much am I moved if I know that, like, you have to rely on him to play basketball? I think if he can be a very good ad. I think that he was a bit more limited in Boston because they had so much talent to where he didn't have to do as much. I think we'll probably see a version of him that's closer to the one we saw, ironically, in DC, where like he played really good basketball in DC, right? So that's possible, but he has to show that he can stay healthy. Whatever illness was plaguing him in the playoffs, are we sure he's going to be good to go for next year? I don't know. But just in terms of his fit, adding a knockdown 5-out spacer for Trae Young can be a really, really big thing. I also think it's a big thing for Jalen Johnson as well, who continues to make steps year after year after year to get better at the game. So I think that's huge. I think it's like fair to actually talk about the other teams because I'm mainly only focused on Boston. But in 2 days, Boston is now out of the second apron.
Second apron.
Like they're now out of the second apron. And what makes it so scary to me, though, and again, this is why I'm like watching for the Jaylen Brown trade for me, at least, Hayes, is because now that you're out of that apron, you can aggregate salary. You can, work different types of Jaylen Brown trades now. Beforehand, you couldn't do that. So this step to me could signify another big move. Obviously, we got to see it, but I like the move for Atlanta. I don't know how much I'm moved by Terrence Mann going to the Nets. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, the Nets, I think for the Nets, it's clear. Like, now they have 5 first-round picks in this draft, if I'm not mistaken.
They do.
19, 22, 26, and 27.
And they can package some of them to make a bigger.
Yeah.
So,
that's the thing to look out for Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn getting 5 first-round picks in the draft, that's the flexibility for them. For Boston, clearly getting under the second tax apron, which now they can use their mid-level exception to sign somebody if they wanted to. They couldn't before. So that's a benefit that they get from that. That's almost maybe worth it in just getting under the second tax apron. And this goes to show why for teams, it's when you are committed to move a player and you are no longer tied to what the return is, you can just focus on moving a player. I don't care what nobody, there is no contract that's not movable in the NBA. Some are more difficult to move because teams want a certain level of return back. For Boston, they just moved over $60 million
in 48 hours.
In 24 hours.
Yeah, 24 hours.
Without taking nearly that much back.
Yep.
And they got picks back, by the way.
And got
picks back.
See, now this is what separates the Brad Stevens world from like the Rick Pitino's of the early 2000s with the Boston Celtics. like literally back then, Rick's response to any negativity was to blame the fans. Like, hey, y'all, it's y'all's fault for thinking that we got Larry Bird and them niggas over here. And instead we got a young Antoine Walker. And now And Brad Stevens comes in off the heels of what Danny Ainge in that era was able to do, who picked the brains of, and Danny, the thing that I liked about him was he even said it before. He said it multiple times. Like, when it comes down to what's best for the team, that's what he always had in mind. You can't blame that nigga because he was a role player. He was a role player. So his time to have the biggest, if he can have his biggest influence over the team and that pans out to something successful, that's all he's worried about. Shit, because they wasn't worried about his minutes in 1986. Anybody worry about no minutes right now? You can go get minutes in Minnesota. Nigga, I need a championship. I need championship caliber players. We need to move up off of this. You had 7 years here. That's great. The only player I want to keep is Paul Pierce. Like those were the moves that he was making. In Brad Stevens' era, it's as simple as thank you for your service. You helped us win a championship, and we needed you because what did they do when they got Drew Holiday? They upgraded from Marcus Smart. What did they do when they got Kristaps Porzingis? They upgraded from Al Horford while still keeping Al Horford. Like, it's always playing chess and different moves to keep what they got really in their back pocket secured. Now they're looking at this and they're saying, if we got to take a gap year, this is literally a gap year for them. If we have to take it, cool. Either we can't keep you, because if we do in a year's time, this will all fall back on the bank side of all this, and we really are going to be screwed. Let's go ahead and this is the end of the road, nigga. Thank you. that's what it is.
Do we talk about the other trade Boston made or no?
We have not. We did not get to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I want to say this, like, and again, I think today just proves it for me. Like, the Boston Celtics are so ahead of other front offices, man. And I say that because regardless of how you feel about Anthony Simons, it truly does not matter. You can think he's the greatest point guard ever, or he's dog shit at basketball. It don't matter because they made it for money. Like, getting a player that caliber and you're dumping salary and you're getting picks, and here's the crazy part. What I think is going to happen, and again, I'm calling this early. It might not happen, right? What I think is going to happen is they're going to play him. He's going to look good in Boston. They're going to raise his value, and they're going to trade his expiring at the deadline for a team that needs the cap space in free agency and get either more value picks back or an even better player that they're actually higher on. Because I think stylistically, Anthony Simons is a horrible defender, and I don't think it's what Boston wants in their long-term plans. But because of his expiring and because you need someone to score, it makes sense to do that in the first leg of the season. But their game is assets. Repairing his value and trading him for more picks would be a great move. I think that they're going to try to make. At least that's my prediction on it. And even if they don't, they could also re-sign him for a lower extension to where he doesn't eat up the majority of the cap after the fact. So to me, it's a landslide victory for them in that trade too.
And
Wait a second. Hold on. Did you say the Heat and Celtics with KG and Ray were kind of thrown together? I don't know if I agree with that.
In terms of what?
Yeah, because I think when you added Ray Allen and KG to that team, they already had Paul Pierce, they had Rajon there, they had Perk there, and so it wasn't just thrown together. Like, I feel like that made a lot of sense. Now they had to figure out the bench over time, but even then they had killers on the bench. Like, I don't know if I can say
okay, so they did have this. I still think to this day the biggest single season turnaround, right? From the and like you said, Rondo, KP were already there. I think it's more so based on the package itself. Like that can really be the tester for something like this. I don't know if I agree with them in terms of that they were thrown together, but I will say Danny Ainge at that time looked at that situation and was like the Celtics from the ground up, I think, were looking at trying to do something as spectacular as having that big of a single season turnaround. So what they did back then, even with Ray Allen and landing Kevin Garnett, because I think they were originally supposed to just get one of them at first, and then I think Ray was the last one that came.
Remember? No, they tried to get KG. He did not turn down his no trade clause.
Oh,
they all season. They traded for Ray Allen, and then after getting Ray Allen, KG said, "You know what? I may actually want to go there."
Yep, you just refreshed my memory. Thank you.
So,
but yeah. So if you would say that was kind of thrown together, maybe just based on like everything wasn't as smooth, but I don't know. The Jokic news, yes, we see the Jokic news. I don't know why he said that.
It's just bro.
it's definitely just
Yeah. I think it's yap too, but you don't say that. Like you don't even need to say a sentence that includes trading Nikola Jokic. That's the last nigga on the team that, like, Mike Malone would have deserved to be fired before Nikola Jokic gets traded from his team. Jamal Murray would deserve to get his contract waived before Nikola Jokic gets traded from his team. Like, all those extreme things, one of them did happen, but would need to happen for that to be somewhat valid. But he was just because my initial thought after he said that was, why?
Yeah.
What purpose? Y'all just fired Mike Malone before the playoffs started. Y'all did that. I'm tired of niggas not being held accountable in the NBA. Y'all did that. And I don't care. I don't care what possible reasoning. He yelled at the players at halftime and niggas was in their feelings. Who cares? He won an NBA championship less than 3 years ago. What are we talking about here? I don't care. The NBA has gone soft in that regard because, like Dell said, shout out Dell, but like Dell said with the Tom Thibodeau thing, it's like if you want to create a culture, it starts with the head coach. Then you see what players, superstars you can get, role players you can get, et cetera, et cetera. But it starts with the coach. Doc Rivers in that 2008 Celtics team literally throughout the entire season was preaching, I think, in Batu or some shit like that, in Butu or something like that, which means togetherness in some other language. But he was preaching that to them from the moment that they all got together and went overseas to start out their offseason. We're together. That's building a culture. He was able to be there for more years after that and was there for a few years before that, but he was able to build a career there, even in Los Angeles with the Clippers, for how exciting they were as a regular season team. But literally, bro was able to build up another career over there. The fact that Doc Rivers has longer tenures for teams that he did less than Tom Thibodeau did with his team is insane to me. But it is what it is. Monty Williams, a guy like him, or excuse me, Dwayne Casey, guys like him, getting fired after winning Coach of the Year. Like, coaches, I know they're going to get paid regardless, so I know that they probably at the end of the day don't even care they get fired because they're still getting their money. But if I was a coach, and I would from that regard, but if I was a coach, I'm sitting there saying like, yo, you hire me to build something and then fire me in the process of building that. We're not going to win the championship in the first year. We may not win it in the second year. But we got to keep going at some point. Joe Mazzulla, Ime Udoka, those guys I feel like can be secured in their jobs depending on the circumstances.
True.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just something that I always thought was Steve Kerr is still secure in his job, and he has 4 championships that he can brag with as a coach. And I get that, but this nigga's coaching gets critiqued every other Tuesday. So it's like even dating back to last summer with Jason Tatum, even though they won. So it's like some coaches, I'm like, damn, he is rich. He can do whatever he wants. He can go on a 15-game losing skid. His job's secure. But the moment that Mike Malone drops below 500 post All-Star break, it all hell and broke loose and shit. It has nothing to do with Michael Porter Jr.'s back not being fully intact or Jamal Murray not showing up. Fuck it. It's Michael Malone's fault. I don't get that. I've never got that. Sorry, I just had to rant on that. That shit pissed me off.
I feel that.
That shit pissed me off.
But yeah, so how did y'all feel though about the move to trade Drew Holiday for Anthony Simons?
I mean, I think it's a smart move on Boston's side. Like, you get a young player that's 26 years old. I think he's only a year younger than like Jason Tatum, 3 years younger than Jaylen Brown. Like, you get a young player in exchange for Drew Holiday, who make no mistake, Drew Holiday is still a very good NBA player, but he's clearly starting to be on a downslide, right? Like, and so you get that. I think the Portland Trailblazers wanted a point guard in there that they can rely a little bit more on. I think they are going to try to go on a play-in run. I think that it was just smart business. Like, and to your point, whether they decide to flip Anthony Simons later or keep him if he ends up being the shooter that they need off the bench, depending on what happens by the time Tatum's back healthy, you got a young guy in there. But I think it was a smart move by the Boston Celtics that could turn into an even smarter move depending on either how Anthony fits or if you trade him at the trade deadline for a team that needs a shooter and you can get more picks back then too.
Yep. I look at the trade to say I like that you brought up that point too, because now I'm looking at this trade the same way that I looked at Chris Paul when he got traded to the Warriors, when he signed with the Warriors. I was like, dude, this is literally a situation that they can flip even if he plays well, which he did. The Warriors had a top 3 bench by the time right before Chris Paul got traded from them. They had a top 3 bench from the previous year where Gifted, you remember 2023, the bench unit was god awful with Jordan Poole leading it, who, by the way, can we also bring that up as well? Jordan Poole to New Orleans. Now
we almost completely forgot about that. You're right. Like that.
Now that right there.
We didn't talk about that.
I'm a fan of that.
I'm excited about that.
I like that for the Pelicans in the sense of this. Like, you still got DeJounte there. Now you got Jordan Poole. You got Yves Messi. You still kept Herb Jones still out there. You have Trey Murphy III. They're like, you're starting to quietly build a squad that on paper is starting to look like a squad that can make some sense. Yep. Now Jordan Poole has to not be a head case. He has to realize that you're going to get your shots, but you're not just going to shoot however the hell you want to. But I'm telling you this, it's either going to work really, really well, or that shit about to blow up. I don't see no middle ground for it. I don't see no middle ground for it at all. So
that's funny.
Man, so I really like the idea of Poole being there just because this is the first time we're seeing the Pelicans be a team where Zion is our guy. There is no Brandon Ingram. We don't have to do this like weird clunky fit about how's he going to play off. No, like this is fully Zion's team now that is 100% sure as he's here. Trey Murphy had one of the best, most improved seasons last year. I thought he should have been firmly in the running to get it because he had moments where the team was hurt and he was dropping 20 points, 25 points. He had 40 back-to-back in, I think, the month of March. Like, he was playing lights-out basketball, both athletically and also as a three-point shooter. So now you get another retool season, and you get Poole, who's just a more dynamic guard than I would say Mr. CBA was, right? So to me, I just like the fit of where this team is going. But honestly, I like this for the Wizards a ton. Like a ton. I'm a big fan. A lot of people aren't going to bring them up because they're ass, and I can understand that. But the reason why I love this move for them is because, A, clearly they believed in Bub Carrington over Jordan Poole. So they wanted to give him as much touches to really develop as possible. He showed a lot of good, promising signs last year. And more importantly, the amount of cap space opened up by this, they're going to almost have $100 million to play with in 2026. Brilliant move for them.
Yeah, I mean they have created now almost $100 million they're going to have. Now, I don't think anybody's going to sign as a free agent to come to Washington, so I don't think that that's what they're going to do. But I do think that opens them up to be a third team because 2026 is probably going to be a pretty busy offseason. So I don't know as busy as we've seen this one, but it's projected to be a pretty busy one. And now they could be a third team and stack more assets as they have really young players that they're developing. They can do a lot with that. So I think that's what it opens up for the Washington Wizards. Kind of just fix their direction a little bit too as well.
Yeah.
All right, fellas, anything left, man, before we get up out of here?
It's just crazy because we didn't talk about the draft too much. The draft is literally tomorrow. Any thoughts about that, y'all?
The thing I'm looking for the most in the draft is what happens with Ace. How far does Ace Bailey fall? I've heard. Okay.
Yes, my question.
I'm cool with the head writer over at Action Sports and one of the guys that run No Ceilings, and they both said that if he falls past 4, he can go as low as 10. And that would be crazy to see if
that would be wild.
Wow.
That would be crazy.
That would be wild.
So
I don't think he drops that far. Let's all watch and see Nico Harrison be like I'm not drafting Cooper. Fuck that. like imagine.
No, there's no way.
Bro, could you imagine if Nico Harrison traded the number 1 overall pick after trading Luka Doncic and bro, like
you're a dead man walking.
Bro, you know how fire it would be if, like, right before they go on the podium, Shams had a tweet and saying they traded the number 1 pick, they traded the newly extended Daniel Gafford all these picks, and they got Jan. That would be such a wild report to see right before the number 1 pick gets drafted. That would be insane.
I can't. I don't want that to be completely spoken into existence so that it could potentially happen.
One person can't be that fucking stupid. Just to be
fair.
You can't
it's
be
not
that
happening.
stupid.
Right?
If he trades the number 1 overall pick, he has to get out of Dallas immediately. They will kill him. That's it. They will literally murder that man.
They don't need it'll be bad. The world don't need, the country don't need none of that shit right now, man. Nico,
we got too much shit going on.
We got too much going on as is right now. Yeah.
Play your cards right, man. Draft that the next Larry Bird and call it a day, nigga. Like
it's such a no-brainer pick too. Like I think,
save yourself.
I'm just interested for all the team movement because I think the East having so many injured people is making every team in the East say, dog, we can compete. Like, why can we not compete if like there is no like unbeatable superpower at the 1 or 2 seed? We've seen the Cavs as good as they have been. They clearly do not spark fear in people's hearts because they lose in the playoffs. So a lot of people think this could be our year to really make something shake. And because of that, you're going to see more trades. You're going to see more activity. I can't wait, bro. By next week, we could come on the show next week and the entire landscape is way different.
I mean, it's already changed so much in just the last 24 hours, bro. Now, it's gonna be crazy movement in the draft. It's gonna be crazy.
Talking about teams different. Let me tell you something. This is gonna be an exciting offseason because we're looking at everybody in the Eastern Conference very differently than we were going into last offseason. So this is gonna be very interesting. Very interesting.
But we will be back here next week. We're getting back to being consistent. We apologize for the inactivity for a little while there, but we're gonna be back on it. So y'all make sure. We still got to find Bama. I haven't heard from Bama in like a month. I don't know where Bama is.
That boy's in the nether realm or some shit, man.
I mean that's what happens when you take too many honey packs. You transcend. He's somewhere right now that none of us will ever be able to reach.
He is a rhino at this point.
But we appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. We'll be back next Tuesday as well, 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure y'all stay in tune with us, man. But we appreciate y'all. We'll be back. Peace.
Peace, y'all.
Peace out, people.
Have fun on the draft.
I'll get y'all next week. Salute.